In the blistering heat of the summer of 1944, the beaches of Normandy still echoed with the thunder of D-Day's invasion. On June 6th, under a canopy of Allied aircraft and naval gunfire, over 156,000 American, British, and Canadian troops stormed 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword, in the largest amphibious assault in history, code-named Operation Overlord. The initial hours were a maelstrom of chaos. Landing craft bobbed in choppy seas, soldiers waded through chest-deep water under withering machine gun fire, and paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions dropped behind enemy lines in the dead of night. Casualties mounted, over 4,000 Allied dead on that first day alone, but a foothold was secured. The narrow strip of French coastline became a bridgehead, a precarious toehold from which the liberation of Europe would unfold. For weeks, the Allies slogged through the bocage country, dense hedgerows that favored German defenders armed with panzers and 88mm guns. The Battle of Normandy dragged on, a brutal attritional fight where progress was measured in yards. But by late July, the tide turned. Operation Cobra, launched on July 25th, saw American forces under General Omar Bradley punch through German lines near St. Lo. B-17 Flying Fortresses and P-47 Thunderbolts carpet-bombed the enemy, creating craters that swallowed entire tank platoons. General George S. Patton's Third Army, activated on August 1st, exploited the breach with characteristic audacity. Patton, the flamboyant cavalryman known for his pearl-handled revolvers and profane pep talks, urged his men onward. "We're going to murder those lousy Hun cocksuckers by the bushel basket." His armored columns raced across the French countryside, liberating Avranches, Rennes, and Le Mans in a blur of dust and diesel fumes. By August 25th, Paris itself fell, French civilians cheering as American GIs rolled down the Champs-Élysées. Yet, this lightning advance masked a looming catastrophe: logistics. War is not just about battles, it's about beans, bullets, and bandages. The Allied armies, now stretching over 300 miles from the Normandy beaches, consumed supplies at a voracious rate. Each of the 28 divisions, units of roughly 15,000 soldiers, including infantry, artillery, engineers, and support troops, required up to 750 tons of materiel daily during heavy fighting. That included 200 tons of ammunition to feed the howitzers and machine guns, 150 tons of fuel to keep the Sherman tanks and Willys jeeps moving, 100 tons of rations like K-rations, canned meat, biscuits, and cigarettes, and assorted medical supplies, spare parts, and even morale boosters like chocolate bars and newspapers. Patton's Third Army alone burned through 1 million gallons of gasoline every day, its M4 Shermans guzzling 0.5 gallons per mile on roads, more off them. The infrastructure couldn't keep pace. The French rail network, a web of steel tracks that had once connected Paris to the provinces, lay in ruins, systematically bombed by Allied aircraft like RAF Lancasters and USAAF B-24 Liberators to prevent German reinforcements from using it. Over 1,500 locomotives and 18,000 freight cars were destroyed in pre-invasion raids. Ports were equally devastated. Cherbourg, captured on June 26th after bitter street fighting, was sabotaged by the retreating Germans who blew up cranes, sank ships in the harbor, and mined the quays. It took engineers weeks to clear the wreckage, and even then, throughput was limited to 15,000 tons daily, far short of the 37,000 tons needed. Temporary mulberry harbors, ingenious prefabricated piers towed across the channel, handled an impressive 170,000 vehicles, 7.5 million gallons of fuel, and 500,000 tons of supplies by July's end, but distribution inland was the choke point. Supplies piled up on the beaches in vast depots, mountains of jerry cans, crates of sea rations, and ammunition dumps that stretched for miles under camouflage netting. Meanwhile, at the front, soldiers scavenged German rations. Tanks idled for lack of fuel, and artillery batteries fell silent. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander, monitored the crisis from his headquarters in a requisitioned chateau near Granville. Ike, a Kansas farm boy turned five-star general, was a master of coalition warfare, balancing the egos of Patton, Montgomery, and de Gaulle. But logistics tested even his patience. "The question is just how many days we can keep up the present speed," he confided to his diary. His staff, including logistics experts from the Services of Supply, SOS, under Major General John C.H. Lee, scrambled for solutions. Pipelines were proposed. Indeed, Operation Pluto, pipeline under the ocean, would later snake fuel across the channel. But they took time to build. Rail repair crews labored around the clock, but sabotage and shortages delayed progress. In a frantic 36-hour brainstorming session on August 23-24th, the team settled on a radical interim fix, a dedicated overland truck convoy system bypassing the rails entirely. They christened it the Red Ball Express, borrowing from American railroad slang where red balls or discs marked priority freight cars. Express shipments that demanded right-of-way and no delays. The name evoked urgency, a non-stop relay race against time and distance. Colonel Loren A. Ayers, a tough-as-nails logistics officer from the Advanced Section Communications Zone, ADSEC, was tapped to lead. Nicknamed Little Patton for his short stature, fiery temper, and relentless drive, Ayers had cut his teeth in North Africa and Sicily. He assembled 132 trucking companies from across the European Theatre of Operations, ETO, mustering nearly 6,000 vehicles. The mainstay was the GMC CCKW 353, affectionately called the Deuce and a Half, or Jimmy, a 2.5-ton, six-wheel drive beast with a 91 horsepower engine, capable of hauling 5 tons over rough terrain. Dodges, Macs, and even captured German Opel Blitz trucks filled out the fleet. Over 23,000 men were assigned, drawn from quartermaster, ordnance, and transportation units. Strikingly, about 75%, some 17,250 soldiers, were African American. From segregated outfits like the 514th, 666th, and 3857th Quartermaster Truck Companies, this racial composition reflected the ugly realities of the U.S. Army in World War II. Under Jim Crow policies, black soldiers were barred from most combat roles, confined to support duties deemed lesser by white leadership. The War Department, influenced by pseudo-scientific racism, claimed African Americans lacked the intelligence or initiative for frontline fighting. Instead, they were funneled into labor battalions, digging ditches, loading ships, and driving trucks. In the ETO, over 90,000 black troops served in logistics, often under white officers who enforced segregation with separate barracks, mess halls, and even blood plasma supplies. Discrimination was rampant, promotions were rare, pay disparities existed, and abuse was common. Yet these men enlisted in droves, seeking economic opportunity and a chance to prove their worth. As one black veteran later said, "We fought 2 wars, one against Hitler, one against prejudice." The Red Ball Express launched on August 25, 1944, coinciding with Paris's liberation. The initial route was a 125-mile loop from the beaches near Saint-Lô and Cherbourg, snaking northeast through towns like Vire, Alençon, Dreux, Chartres, and La Loupe. It was a one-way circuit, the northern lane for outbound trucks laden with supplies, the southern for inbound empties returning for reloads. Signs emblazoned with bright red balls, painted on boards, trees, and barns, proclaimed, "Red Ball, keep out." The 793rd Military Police Battalion enforced exclusivity, barring civilian vehicles, local farmers' carts, and even non-essential Allied traffic. Military police, MPs, manned 24-hour checkpoints, logging convoy details, issuing rations, and performing quick inspections. Convoys formed in groups of at least 5 trucks, spaced 60 yards apart to minimize pileups, with armed jeeps leading and trailing, blue flags at the front for identification. Green at the rear. The official rules were strict. 25 mph speed limit to conserve tires and engines. No passing except in emergencies. Mandatory 10-minute halts every 2 hours for checks and rest. But in practice, urgency trumped regulations. Drivers, eager to meet quotas, removed engine governors, devices limiting RPMs, allowing speeds up to 60 mph on straightaways. "We drove like hell," recalled Private James Rookard of the 514th Quartermaster, a black soldier from North Carolina. "If you slowed down, the war slowed down. Loads varied. Gasoline in 5-gallon jerrycans stacked high, ammunition crates strapped down, rations in burlap sacks, even artillery shells and medical kits. A single convoy might carry enough fuel for a tank battalion or bullets for an infantry regiment. Life on the Red Ball was a grind of exhaustion and peril. Shifts stretched 36 to 48 hours, with drivers swapping seats mid-motion to snatch naps, one steering while the other slumped against the door. "You drive until your eyes crossed," said Sergeant Redvers McCall, another black driver. Meals were hasty, coffee from thermoses, spam sandwiches wolfed at checkpoints. Night runs were surreal, initially with full headlights blazing, since the Luftwaffe was largely neutralized by Allied air superiority. But as German resistance stiffened, lights dimmed to cat eyes, narrow slits taped over bulbs to evade detection. Rain turned roads into quagmires. The loamy soil of Normandy churned into axle-deep mud, seizing wheels and burning transmissions. Tires, often cheap retreads from stateside factories, shredded on potholes and shrapnel. Overloads, trucks rated for 5 tons carrying 7 or 8, bent axles and overheated engines. Enemy threats compounded the misery. Retreating Germans sowed mines along shoulders, booby-trapped bridges, and left sniper teams in church steeples or hedgerows. One convoy near Weiher took sporadic fire. Drivers zigzagged, carbines barking from cabs. Luftwaffe raids, though infrequent, were deadly. Messerschmitt Bf 109s strafing columns with 20mm cannons. "You'd hear the whine, then dive for the ditch," a veteran recounted. Internal woes plagued too. Black marketeers in Paris hijacked loads, trading gas for wine or women. Gangs of deserters, American, French, even Polish, ambushed stragglers. Sabotage lurked. Sugar in fuel tanks from disgruntled locals, or condensation causing water contamination. Mechanics purged lines obsessively, but breakdowns were epidemic. And here, the mechanics emerged as the true unsung heroes, the oil-smeared alchemists who transmuted wreckage into motion. Predominantly black soldiers from quartermaster maintenance companies, they were quick learners, often with pre-war experience from farms or garages. Bivouac areas sprouted along the route, sprawling tent cities at Alençon, Chartres, Dreux and Sommesous, equipped with tool sheds, parts depots, and field kitchens, serving 22,000 men hot chow and brief respite. These way stations were oases amid the chaos, where drivers refueled, mechanics swapped tires, and medics treated blisters and sprains. But most repairs were improvised heroics on the roadside. Roving flying squads in jeeps patrolled, armed with toolkits, welding torches and tow chains. Spot a breakdown, smoke billowing from an engine or a flat tire, and they'd swarm. Spares were scarce, so scavenging ruled. Stripping hubs from wrecked trailers, hoses from abandoned German half-tracks, even wheels from artillery limbers. Retreads were patched with rubber cement or chewing gum in a pinch. Engines seized from low oil were flushed with kerosene substitutes. "We made parts from nothing," boasted Corporal Henry Dixon, a mechanic from Detroit. One team fashioned a radiator from perforated jerry cans. Another straightened bent axles with crowbars and bonfires for heat. Improvisation peaked in Phase 2 as the front advanced. Routes ballooned to 400 miles, then 750 round trip to Verdun and Metz. Breakdowns surged. Spot checks found 81 trucks sidelined one day, engines coughing from dust ingestion. Training was rushed. Many mechanics learned on the job, dissecting GMC manuals by lantern light. Fatigue was lethal. 24-hour shifts blurred vision, leading to wrecks. Some drivers, desperate for rest, sabotaged brakes, prompting army crackdowns with court-martials. Yet output soared. At peak, 5,158 trucks hauled 12,500 tons daily, a record 12,142 tons on September 1st. Total haul, 412,193 tons by November 16th, when Antwerp's port reopened and rails were mended. Amid this frenzy, legends were forged. One stormy night near Dreux in early September, a convoy of 50 jimmies stalled in a muddy depot. Tires exploded from overloads, transmissions jammed in sludge, engines drowned from fording streams. The stakes were dire. These trucks carried ammunition for Patton's assault on the Moselle River. Delay meant stalled offensives, exposed flanks, perhaps a German counterpunch. Sergeant Elijah Washington, a composite figure embodying countless black mechanics, took charge. From rural Alabama, Washington had tinkered with tractors pre-war, enlisting to escape sharecropping. His team scattered by a mine blast earlier. He worked solo under pelting rain, lantern flickering. He attacked the first truck, crawling beneath, wrenching mud-caked gears free, splicing hoses with barbed wire from a fence. Tires swapped from a nearby wreck, brakes scoured with sandpaper. Engine after engine revived, fouled plugs cleaned, fuel lines bled, radiators patched with solern. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating his grease-blackened face. Hands numb from cold, eyes stinging from exhaust, he pressed on. By the 20th truck, fatigue clawed at him. A brief nap in a cab, then back. Improvisations abounded. A fan belt from bootlaces, an axle levered straight with logs. As dawn broke, the 50th engine roared. Drivers, huddled in ponchos, stared in awe. "You're a miracle worker, Sarge," the convoy leader grunted, clapping his shoulder. The trucks rumbled out, supplies surging to the front. Unbeknownst, German scouts, engineers from the 7th Army's logistics arm, observed from a wooded ridge. Binoculars trained, they had infiltrated to disrupt supplies, expecting easy prey. "Unmöglich," one hissed. "Ein Soldat repariert 50 Lastwagen über Nacht." The reports to Field Marshal Walter Model described endless American convoys, repaired by black magic, German logistics, reliant on 625,000 horses, many requisitioned from French farms, faltered. Animals died from overwork, bombs, or disease, with no quick fixes. Rail-dependent, they couldn't match Allied mobility. "The Yankees have motorized everything," a captured officer lamented. Hitler, briefed in his wolf's lair, fumed at the logistical miracle, ordering futile counterstrikes. The Red Ball's success stunned the Wehrmacht. Scouts whispered of ghost trucks rumbling all night, supplies appearing as if conjured. One report noted, "If they repair like this, the war is lost." It fueled Allied breakthroughs, Operation Cobra's success, the Falaise Pocket's closure, trapping 50,000 Germans, and the dash to the Seine. Time magazine, in a September issue, hailed it, "The Germans never got it, the American tradition of trucks, improvisation, and grit." Eisenhower praised, in an October 1st letter, "The drivers and mechanics performed excellently. A miracle of supply that kept our armies rolling." Black soldiers' valor was pivotal, yet recognition lagged. In a segregated army, they endured slurs, unequal facilities, and higher courts-martial rates. But on the Red Ball, they proved indispensable. "We showed what we could do," Rookard reflected post-war. Their efforts hastened change. Wartime riots like the 1943 Detroit unrest pressured Roosevelt, leading to Truman's 1948 Executive Order 9981, desegregating the military. The Express wound down on November 16th, as Antwerp handled 20,000 tons daily. Pole pipelines, pumped fuel, and repaired rails took over. But its ethos endured into the Battle of the Bulge that December. In the Ardennes, sub-zero snow, mechanics thawed engines every half hour with bonfires, evacuating 200,000 gallons of fuel ahead of the German advance. They rushed the 101st Airborne to Bastogne, where Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe famously replied, "Nuts!" to surrender demands. Red Ball veterans hauled ammo through blizzards, turning Hitler's last offensive into a rout. Eisenhower, post-war as president, drew inspiration for the interstate highway system, authorized in 1956 from those dedicated routes. The Red Ball showed what highways could do, he said. Today, memorials dot Normandy, plaques in St. Lo, a museum exhibit in Cherbourg. Films like Red Ball Express, 1952, dramatize it, though often whitewashing black roles. Veterans' oral histories, preserved by the National WWII Museum, recount the grit, mud-caked boots, sniper dodge dashes, overnight miracles. In the end, the Red Ball Express was more than trucks, it was human tenacity. Black soldiers, against odds, kept victory rolling. Their legacy, proof that logistics wins wars and courage knows no color. As one mechanic put it, we fix the trucks, but really we fix the path to freedom.